Things happen once in a lifetime, if you're lucky. It was a kind of fairy tale. I just heard the most almighty splash. He was in need of help and I had to do it. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Thank you for getting in touch about the weekend episode. Thank you for giving me your thoughts. Nice to hear your theories. Nice to hear people's different views on it. I always love that. I love people coming at me and saying, no, actually, I think it went like this. This is what I think happened. I really enjoy those dialogues. So yeah, keep that up. This short story, are you ready for a story of survival, sheer determination, and what happens when you open your heart? Okay, let's go. Let's talk about Arthur. Now, Arthur isn't a man. Arthur is a dog. Now, hang on just 1 minute. If you're not a dog lover, fear not. You will still love the story of Arthur, I promise. Okay, so we're going to start in Sweden with a man named Michael Lindborn. Michael was born in Sweden and from a very young age, he was really athletic. He's into all kinds of sports. You know, those kind of kids that just, from a very young age, just want to get into every sport that they possibly can. Running, cycling, swimming, whatever. That's the kind of child that he was. He just was really into sports. Now, in his early 20s, he got involved with something called adventure racing. Now, I was kind of like vaguely aware of this sport. I'm not really sure if I knew exactly what it was, but it gets classed as extreme sports. Now, you know the kind of thing that I mean. People doing like really extreme climbing up a mountain or skiing down slopes on an ironing board or, well, not quite that, but you know what I mean. So people who really are pushing the limits of their body. For Michael Lindborn, it was addictive to him. He was absolutely addicted to these extreme sports and to adventure racing. So the races that you go on, they can involve kayaking, cycling, running, trekking, hiking, big distances. And basically the rules are you go in a team of 4 and the first team across the line wins. That's it. I mean, I say that's it. Obviously, what's involved is sheer physical brutality against your own body and against your mind. So you work as a team, and survival is the key priority. Hundreds of people, sadly, have died from adventure racing because it is exhausting and the mental fatigue that comes with it. I think that's the hardest part of it. I mean, I'm saying this like I know. I don't know. God, I ride my bike into Glasgow city centre, which is like a 10-minute bike ride, and I'm like, fucking hell, I'm knackered. Oh my God, I've done a week's worth of exercise. Not that I'm unfit, but I don't really do a lot of cardio stuff outside of yoga, really, and a bit of walking. That's about it. So the team that Michael is in, there are 4 of them, 3 men and 1 woman, and they've competed all over the world. And in terms of their ranking worldwide, they're about number 5. So pretty good indeed. Now in 2004, the biggest event of the year, the World Championship, it arrives and it starts in Ecuador. This will be the toughest track yet for the team. So the race begins and off they go. They start really well, and by the end of the first night, they're in second place. So they're in a good position. So they sit down and they're in their tents in Ecuador and they're eating their food, getting ready for a good night's sleep, a good rest before the following day ahead of them, when Michael sees a dog wandering over to their tent. The dog is walking extremely slowly, and they can see the dog is in a really bad condition. Its fur is in a really bad way. It's dirty, it's matted. The dog's got flies around its eyes, and he's just really skinny. And on his back there's a really large sore which has become infected and was bleeding. So the dog is looking for food. And at the time, Michael and his teammates, they're eating meatballs from a packet. So he stops eating his meatballs. And the dog gets closer and he looks at the dog. And he thinks, I know no one wants to be near this dog because he's bleeding and he's so dirty. But if I don't give him food, then no one else will. This dog is clearly starving. So he gives the rest of his dinner to the dog. The dog wanders away and the team settle down for the night to get ready for the next day of racing. So they get up the next day and they're heading to the next part to get started. They look behind them and the dog from the previous night is following them. The image is pretty hilarious. You've got these 4 extreme athletes and they're walking with all of their gear. They look really tired, and this little blonde dog is behind them. He's a sort of sheepdog mix, and he's keeping a little distance behind them. Every time the group stop, he stops. Every time they start moving, he moves with them. But he's always just kind of keeping his distance a little bit from them. So the further on they go, the dog keeps coming with them and he starts to get closer and closer. They're now about to go through a really tough part of the race. They have to wade through miles and miles of mud. And the only way that you can do it is by working as a team and supporting each other. You sort of physically have to hold and drag each other through the mud. Guess who's with them every step of the way? The dog. The dog keeps getting stuck in the mud. He'd actually just physically get his paws trapped in the mud. And they would turn and they would look and think, okay, do we go back? Do we wade our way back? Get him out of the mud? Or do we see what he can do? And each time the dog got stuck, he would always find his own way out of it. So the team never actually ever had to come back. Their progress was slowed down because they had to keep stopping and checking that he was okay. But every single time this dog got stuck, he managed to get his way back out of that. They decided by this point they needed to give him a name because they didn't have a name. So they think about it and they think about it, and Michael keeps trying all these different names, but none of them feel right. And then he starts to think, I like this, he starts to think randomly about King Arthur. And he thinks King Arthur was someone who went through some really terrible stuff, but, had a good strong spirit. Okay, let's try Arthur. And it fits. It just somehow fits. They all agree that Arthur is the right name for the dog. So, for the next few days, they carry on and Arthur is by their side. They hit a point where they are they're days into the race now, right? They are days into it. They are exhausted. They're exhausted, but so is Arthur. He's absolutely shattered. And they don't really know what's best to do here. He's now a part of the team, but they're thinking, I think he needs help. I think he needs help. So the team decide to do this, and I love this so much. They look at Arthur and they realise that of all 5 members of this team, the 4 of them and him, it's Arthur who needs the most amount of food. So what they do is they divide up their food in a way that means that he will always get more than them to keep him going and to keep him alive. The group make a pact between them that it doesn't matter if they run out of food, they had to look after Arthur first. So they continue to climb and they continue to trek for days. Now they're coming towards the end of the race and they're about to hit a massive hurdle. One of the final parts of the race is kayaking across 34 miles of water, and the journey takes 14 hours. So when they get to where you need to start the race, one of the race officials comes forward and says, no, you can't take that dog. That dog has to stay here. He cannot go into a kayak. He cannot come with you on the next leg of the race. So here's the thing. The team and Michael, they knew there was a chance of this, but they hoped and they prayed and they just thought, maybe we can get away with it. Maybe we can get him on this kayak. But when they're told the news, no, that they have to carry on without him, Michael describes that he couldn't even look at Arthur as he climbed into the kayak because he thought that his heart might break. So the team, with really heavy hearts, they decide that they need to carry on. They make a pact that at some point they'll come back. They'll get the race done, they'll come back, and they'll try and find him. So they get in to the kayak. They start to move, and Arthur's left behind on the bank. Seconds after the kayak leaves, the team hear the most almighty splash in the water, and it's Arthur. He's jumped in and he's swimming beside them. He's keeping up with their pace. Michael reaches down, he grabs Arthur and he lifts him up out of the water, puts him on his knee, and Arthur stays with them for the rest of the kayak journey. What's brilliant is they have to keep stopping because as they're going through the water, Arthur's sitting in the kayak with them. If he spots a fish in the water, he will just throw himself from the kayak into the water to get the fish, and one of the team has to go into the water, rescue him, get him back, and get him back on the kayak. So this whole journey is slowed down so much by the constantly having to stop for Arthur all the way. What was really becoming clear for the team, and I think this is lovely, is that it no longer mattered to them if they won or if they didn't. Remember, at one point they were in second place. That didn't really matter anymore. What mattered to them was that they were a team of 4 humans and 1 dog, and that they were going to cross that finish line together. By the time they finished the crossing line, they came in 12th place. But they didn't give a fuck. Didn't care. However, it's not really great news for them when they cross the finish line. The Ecuador team, who had also finished the race, they had heard of Arthur's story. It had sort of gone through all the teams now that one of the teams had acquired a dog somewhere along the way, and this dog was slowing them down and holding them back, but they had kept this dog with them the whole entire way. And the Ecuador team, they come to Michael and they say, you're going to have to just leave him here because Arthur's a street dog, and this is how it goes in Ecuador. Sadly, street dogs just die. This is what happens. It's just the way that it is. You need to let him go and let him try and fight for his survival on the streets. That's what life is meant to be. That is so grim. But what was the plan for Arthur? Well, no one really knew. I mean, the team are now staying in a hotel, having finished the race, and they've got Arthur with them. So Michael thinks about it. He thinks and he thinks and he thinks. And he decides to make a call to his wife in Sweden. And he says, I want to bring this dog with me. I want to bring this dog home with me to live with us in Sweden. And his wife says, yes, okay. I'm behind you with this. If that's what you want, do it. So there's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of money involved. But finally, Michael is able to fly Arthur to his home in Sweden. Once he's there, he receives treatment for his back. He gets dental treatment. He has 2 small operations, and he is then fully on the mend and on his way to becoming a really healthy dog. Now, the team had guessed by Arthur's appearance that he might be 7 or 8 years old, but when examined, the vet discovers that Arthur is actually only 3 years old. This makes me laugh. The story had gotten some press, and sensing that there might be money to be made out of this, 2 different people popped up from Ecuador and said, that's my dog. Oh yes, I mean, one guy popped up and was like, I recognise that dog. That's my dog, Barracuda, or whatever. It just makes up a name. That's my dog, Barracuda. And then a woman comes forward and she goes, that's my dog. I've been looking for him for ages, and I want him brought back from Sweden. At which point, I think this is great, people in Ecuador turn around and say, well, that's fine. You can say that that's your dog, but if you're going to claim that Arthur's your dog, you're going to be charged with neglect. At which point, both those people go, oh yeah, oh sorry, no, I've made a terrible mistake. Sorry about that. Actually, he's not my dog. No, I've never seen that dog in my life. Bye. Idiots. So Arthur, right now, right at this very moment, is happily living with Michael and his family in Sweden. So the team, they have managed through an amazing campaign on Facebook and on Twitter to start a programme in Ecuador to help street dogs. And there's plans very soon for a community dog project to begin. And I love the sound of this. It's where a community takes responsibility for those street dogs, and they take turns in feeding those dogs, and they make sure that if they're ill, they try and get money to help those dogs. All started because Arthur wandered over one day and took a meatball from Michael and his team. And so ends the story of Arthur the dog. Lovely story. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope that was a nice gear change from some of the darker, more grim things that we've been exploring recently. There has to be shade, there has to be light, there has to be dark. And I know that a lot of you have felt very affected by some of the really darker stories that I told a while ago. But don't worry, it's never always going to be like that. and it's never always going to be like this. We're just going to have to ride that wave together. Okay. Thanks for listening. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Get me on all of them. You want to support me? Go to Patreon. That would be lovely. Okay. Until next week. Okay? Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.